years, the Great Pyramid of Giza just kind of sat there, this silent giant in the desert. But what if it's not silent? What if it's been speaking to us this whole time in a language of math, prophecy, and science? Well, today we're diving into a source that claims it has cracked the code, and its interpretation of this ancient wonder is, well, it's really something else. Now, we all think we know the story, right? It's a massive tomb, the final resting place for a pharaoh. But the source we're looking at today says, hold on, not so fast. It wants us to think about a totally different possibility. What if this was never a tomb at all, but a giant, detailed prophecy for all of us, literally set in stone? So, the whole idea here is that absolutely nothing in the Great Pyramid is random. Every single hallway, every chamber, every little angle, it's all part of a huge, perfectly harmonious design. A message just sitting there, waiting for someone to figure it out. And let me tell you, the source we're exploring is incredibly confident about this. It basically argues that the level of mathematical precision you find in the pyramid is all the proof you need. It's not just some wild guess, it's a totally reasonable conclusion based on the hard evidence of the building itself. Okay, so if there's a message, how do you unlock it? Where's the key? According to this theory, you'll find it deep inside the pyramid, within the granite walls of the king's chamber. This is where the chamber becomes absolutely crucial. The source claims that the king's chamber is the heart of the whole system. Its specific measurements are the standard that everything else in the pyramid is based on. It's like an architectural Rosetta Stone for the entire structure. And this whole system is supposedly built on a foundation of a few key numbers. The theory identifies these specific numbers popping up again and again in the geometry. 10 for completion, 7 for perfection and time, 5 is called the sacred number of the pyramid, and then you have 4 and 3 for basic shapes like squares and triangles. Okay, so you take those numbers and those measurements, and they build up to what is easily the most startling claim in the whole theory, that the pyramid's internal passageways aren't just hallways, they're a physical timeline of human history and prophecy. So how in the world does that work? Well, it all comes down to something called the inch year theory. And the idea is actually pretty simple, but the implications are huge. It says that if you use a special unit of measurement called a pyramid inch, which is almost the same as a British inch, every inch you measure along the floor of a passage represents one single solar year passing. And here's how that maps onto real history according to the source. Key spots in the architecture line up with major dates in biblical history. The timeline kicks off around the birth of Christ. Then, the spot where you enter the amazing ground gallery, that's said to mark 33 AD, the crucifixion. And the timeline keeps going, pointing to 1874 for the Second Advent, and it all climaxes at the very top end of the Grand Gallery in the year 1914. And that 1914 date is a huge deal for this theory. The source argues that the pyramid, which it actually calls the witness in Egypt, confirms what's in the Bible. This measurement is presented as stone-cold proof that 1914 was this massive turning point in history, the beginning of a whole new era, just as prophesied. But hold on, because the prophetic timeline is only half the story. The source says there's another massive secret, and it's been hiding in plain sight this whole time. That big granite box, the coffer, sitting in the king's chamber. Most of us look at that and think sarcophagus. Obvious, right? Well, this theory suggests something way, way more ambitious. It claims the coffer was never meant to hold a body. Instead, it was designed to be a perfect, divinely inspired standard of measurement for every nation on Earth, for all time. And this entire grand system is said to be built on one single precise number, 71,250. That is the exact interior volume of the coffer in cubic pyramid inches. From that one number, a whole system of weights and measures is supposed to flow. And it doesn't even stop there. It gets crazier. The theory actually connects the system to the planet itself. It tells you to look at the walls of the king's chamber, which are built in 5 rows of stone. The very top row is different. It only has 7 giant stones. Put them together, you get 5 and 7, which makes 5.7. The claim? That's the architect literally encoding the mean density of planet Earth. So from that one coffer volume, a whole system of measures supposedly just blossoms into existence. The text lays out everything from a large commercial unit called a quarter all the way down to a single pint, all presented as these perfectly related pieces of one logical, unified system. And the source argues passionately that this system is just
better. The pyramid system is called a divine inheritance. And then, in total contrast, a proponent is quoted who describes its main rival, the French metric system, as coming from, and I'm quoting here, the bottomless pit during the French Revolution. So, yeah, they had strong feelings about it.
So, how does all this stuff fit together? A timeline, a system of measurement, planetary science? Well, according to this source, these aren't just a bunch of separate, wacky ideas. It's all part of a single, unified plan from a master architect.
What we've got here is basically a grand unified theory of the pyramid. You've got a prophetic timeline in the hallways. You have a universal standard of weights and measures in the coffer. You've got scientific data about our planet baked right into the architecture. The source argues all these different parts were intentionally designed to work together in perfect harmony.
And that brings us to the final, ultimate conclusion from the text. A system this complex, this interwoven with prophecy, math, and science, it just couldn't be the work of humans alone. The source concludes that in this incredibly intricate design, what we're really seeing is the hand of a master designer. And so that really leaves us with one big question, doesn't it? Is the Great Pyramid truly an ancient blueprint for humanity's science, its history, and its future, just like this source claims? Or is this whole elaborate theory a much more modern attempt to find some kind of divine meaning and order in a deeply mysterious ancient design? Well, what you think? That's for you to decide.